You know what breaks my heart the most? When a son drags his own parents to court over a scrap of land. I never imagined I'd see something so cold, so bitter, right inside a family. But what I'm about to tell you goes even deeper than that. Just wait. I'm sitting here in this old wooden chair, the creek beneath me, reminding me of all the years that have passed. Outside, the wind carries the faint smell of rain and earth land that once meant everything to us. My hands tremble slightly as I think about what's at stake. This isn't just about dirt and boundaries anymore. It's about more than money. It's about trust, pride, and something I fear may be broken beyond repair. How could he do this to us? My wife whispered last night, eyes heavy with disbelief. Our own son, taking us to court like strangers. I keep asking myself, when did love turn into rivalry? Was it always there, hidden under the surface? And what did that piece of land really mean to him? Was it worth tearing a family apart? I'm going to share everything, how it started, the cracks that grew, the words that cut deeper than any knife. Stick with me until the end. Maybe, just maybe, you'll see what I saw, feel what I felt, and understand why some battles are harder than any judge's ruling. Because sometimes, the hardest fight isn't for land or money. It's for the pieces of your heart left behind. My name is Harold, though most around here just call me Vo Harold. I'm 72 years old now, with a face carved by sun and time, and hands that still remember the rhythm of planting seeds and mending fences. I've always believed in hard work, honesty, and the quiet strength of family, values my own father passed down to me, just like the land I'm about to tell you about. We live in a small town, nestled between rolling hills and endless fields, somewhere where everyone knows your name, and the seasons mark the passing years, like clockwork. It's late autumn now, the sky is a dull gray, and the air smells faintly of wood smoke and damp leaves. Sitting here on the creaky porch of our old farmhouse, I can hear the distant call of a lone crow, and the soft rustle of the wind weaving through the bare branches. This place, it's more than soil and trees. It's memory and belonging. Last night, as the house settled into silence, my wife Margaret leaned close and whispered, "Harold, do you think he ever loved this place the way we did?" Her voice cracked, and I saw the hurt in her eyes, the kind that comes from a wound you can't quite heal. I reached for her hand, but even that small comfort felt fragile. You see, this story isn't just mine. It's the story of a family unraveling, of promises forgotten and hearts put to the test. And right now, as the rain starts to patter softly against the window pane, I feel a storm brewing inside me, one that's far from over. Something happened recently, something that changed everything, and I'm about to tell you all about it. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. It was early spring, when the trouble first showed its face. I was in the barn, wiping down my tools after a long day, when the old Ford truck rumbled up the gravel driveway. I didn't expect visitors, especially not from my son Daniel. He jumped out, his jaw tight and eyes shadowed with something like anger mixed with guilt. "Dad," he said, voice rough, "we need to talk." I nodded slowly, setting my rag down. "All right, Daniel, what's on your mind?" He hesitated, swallowing hard. "It's about the farm. The bank's been calling. They're worried about the mortgage." I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. The farm had been in our family for over 100 years, through wars and hard times, droughts and floods. The idea of losing it was like losing a piece of my soul. "How bad is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing a bit. "It's bad, Dad. The market's fallen, crop prices are low, and with your health, well, you've been struggling. I've been trying to keep things afloat, but I don't know if I can do it alone." I clenched my fists, the rough skin of my palms pressing into my thighs. "Why didn't you say something sooner? We could have worked it out together." He looked away, eyes misting. "I didn't want to worry you or Mom. I thought I could fix it." Margaret appeared at the doorway, her face pale but determined. "Harold, maybe it's time we consider selling part of the land. We can't keep pretending everything's fine." The words hit me like a slap. Sell the land. The thought made my throat tighten. This farm was my father's, his father's before him. It was where my children took their first steps, where memories were planted deeper than any seed. I stood, voice shaking with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "This land isn't just dirt and fences. It's our history. We don't sell our history." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And yet if we don't, we might lose it all, including the house." I stared out the window, watching the sky darken as clouds gathered. The wind whispered through the trees, as if echoing the turmoil in my heart. Could I hold on to my pride and save this place, or was it already slipping through my fingers? Margaret's hand found mine again, warmer this time, steadying me. But inside, a storm raged, a storm that threatened to tear us apart. "Maybe," I finally said, voice low but resolute. "We need to face the truth before it's too late." And with that, everything changed. The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings and murmurs. Daniel threw himself into negotiations with the bank, his nights spent poring over numbers by the dim light of the kitchen lamp. I could see the strain in his shoulders, the way his hands trembled when he thought no one was watching. Yet there were moments, a small win, when the bank granted a temporary reprieve, a buyer expressing interest in a small parcel that flickered like distant stars in the dark. One afternoon, as I walked through the fields, I felt the first bitter sting of frost on my fingers. I paused, breathing in the cold air, letting it sharpen my senses. The land seemed to hold its breath too, waiting, just as I was. Daniel joined me, breaking the silence. "Dad, maybe if we diversify, try some organic crops, maybe a farmer's market stall, we can pull through." I nodded slowly, the seed of hope taking root. "It's worth a shot." Margaret's support was a quiet anchor. She spent hours on the phone, reaching out to old contacts, exploring grants and community programs. One evening, over a simple dinner, she shared a letter from a local cooperative offering. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a tentative smile. But the victories were fragile. A sudden storm swept through, flooding part of the fields and destroying the early shoots. Daniel's face fell as he surveyed the damage. "This might set us back months." I felt the weight of despair creeping in again. "We can't let this break us." Yet beneath the resolve, fear gnawed at me. What if our efforts weren't enough? What if the farm, the heart of our family's legacy, was slipping beyond our reach? One night, as the house settled into silence, my phone buzzed sharply. I answered, voice thick with exhaustion. The caller was the bank manager. "We need to talk about foreclosure," she said plainly. I swallowed hard, the room spinning for a moment. "Not yet," I whispered, more to myself than her. I hung up and looked out the window, the moon casting pale light over the fields. The fight wasn't over, but I didn't know then that this call was only the beginning of a storm, far fiercer than any we'd faced before. The next morning dawned cold and gray, the sky heavy with clouds that seemed to press down on the farm like a weight. I sat at the kitchen table, hands clenched around my coffee mug, when Daniel burst through the door, eyes wild, breath ragged. "Dad, you need to see this." His voice cracked, trembling. I followed him outside, heart pounding so fiercely, I thought it might burst from my chest. He led me to the edge of the property, where a bright, official-looking notice was nailed to the fence post. The words blurred as I read, "Notice of immediate foreclosure and auction date." "No," I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. "This can't be happening." Daniel's hands shook violently. "They're moving fast. We have less than 2 weeks." I felt the ground shift beneath me, the years of sweat and sacrifice crumbling like dry soil. But then a sudden thought struck me, one I had buried deep, afraid to confront. "Daniel," I said, voice low but urgent, "there's something you don't know." He looked at me, confusion and fear mingling in his eyes. "Before all this started," I continued, swallowing the lump in my throat, "I made a deal with the developer who wants the land. I thought, I thought it might save us. Daniel's breath hitched. What kind of deal? I looked away, shame burning my cheeks. I agreed to sell a portion, without telling you or Margaret. I thought if I could just get a little breathing room, but it wasn't enough. And now they're pushing harder. They want the whole farm. The silence that followed was suffocating. The fragile hope we had clung to shattered. In that moment, replaced by a bitter truth, the enemy was not just the bank or the storm, but the betrayal within our own family. My hands trembled, sweat slicking my palms. I'm sorry, son. I thought I was protecting us. Daniel's voice cracked, barely audible. You tore us apart to save us. The wind howled outside, carrying with it the promise of a battle far greater than we had imagined. One not just for land, but for trust, for family. And in that icy dawn, I realized the fight was no longer just about saving a farm. It was about saving what was left of us. The days that followed were a whirlwind of tension and hard conversations. Daniel and I wrestled with our anger and disappointment, but slowly cracks in the walls we built began to form. Margaret, who had been silent, finally spoke, her voice steady but filled with pain. Together we faced the reality that while the farm might be slipping through our fingers, the bonds between us didn't have to. In a small gesture that felt monumental, Daniel suggested we hold one last gathering on the land, a picnic under the old oak tree, where we'd shared so many memories. As we sat there, the three of us, the cold wind softened just enough to carry laughter instead of sorrow. It was a moment of fragile peace. Sitting beside the fading sunset, I took a deep breath and looked at my son and daughter. You know, I began, my voice rough with emotion. I thought I was protecting you by making that deal, but I see now that protection isn't about making decisions alone. It's about facing struggles together, even when it means risking everything. I paused, the weight of years pressing down but a strange lightness in my chest. Sabin mu nato, I said quietly, imagining the boy who would one day listen to this story. Life will throw storms your way. Some you can weather, others you can't. But never forget, the strongest roots aren't just in the earth beneath your feet, but in the love and trust you nurture in those around you. The farm would change hands soon, the fields no longer ours to tend. But in that twilight hour, I realized that what truly mattered wasn't the land itself. It was the family we chose to hold on to. And sometimes, letting go of what you love most is the hardest way to save it. As the sky turned from gray to a soft forgiving blue, I felt a quiet hope, fragile yes, but alive. And that perhaps was enough. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land we once called ours, I understood this truth deep in my bones. Possessions fade, but the ties of the heart endure. Remember, my friends, life's greatest harvest is not the soil we till, but the love we sow. If this story touched your soul, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. I'd be honored to hear how it resonated with you. Until next time, hold your family close and never let go of the roots that bind you.